war and military intervention and imperialism are not just about access to natural resources and geopolitics. Those are one of the main factors, but it's also about preventing countries that are anti-hegemonic, anti-systemic from creating alternatives. Iran, Venezuela, the former Workers' Party government in Brazil, the Korea government in Ecuador, even the more slightly left-leaning but not great government in India, they were all committed to creating a new economic system, and they were integrated into what was known as the BRICS system, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa system. They were trying to create a new global financial system that could challenge the World Bank and the IMF. So it's not even just the resources, it's the so-called threat that these independent countries, not just socialist countries, but even countries like Iran, pose to the US and European dominated international financial system, which is the way that imperialism, aside from military force, that's the most blunt instrument, but the other instruments are the Bretton Woods system. This is the system by which imperialism maintains its international chokehold through the use of the dollar, forcing countries to do international trade in the dollar, to sell their oil in the dollar, and then forcing them to take loans from the IMF, and then the IMF from the World Bank impose structural adjustment, which forces them to open up their economies to Western capital and privatize everything. That
right, and it forces, right, and it's good you mentioned World Trade, because the World Trade Organization basically functions to force these countries in the developing world to not just open up their markets, they're basically forcing them to be captive to American and European surplus goods. So like all of our agriculture, all the surplus agriculture that's produced then gets dumped into these third world countries. And initially, so these third world countries can't protect themselves from all these surplus goods and then aren't able to compete. So like their farmers can't compete with our cheap agricultural goods. It literally puts farmers in the developing world out of business. So they can't produce their own food. They can't produce their own anything.